Be careful what you consume. Not everything sweet to the tongue is safe for the soul. In the heart of Umuola village, people lined up for a taste of the most delicious jollof rice they'd ever known. But hidden beneath the flavor was a dark secret. Today's story is not just about food. It's about trust, revenge, and the terrible cost of silence. So, sit back, but listen closely. It's a warning. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss a single twist in our chilling tales. Now, let's dive into the chilling story. The rooster crowed across the dusty hills of Umuola village, rousing the sun and his people from slumber. In a tiny mud hut near the edge of the market square, Grace sat up sharply, breathing heavily like she'd just outrun a dream. She reached for her wooden mirror, carved by her late father, but the face that stared back at her made her shiver. Her skin, though smooth, looked wrong. Her eyes were too hollow, too knowing. With a hiss, she slammed the mirror down and flung her wrapper over her head. "I don't look like her yet," she muttered. In the corner, a large pot of steaming jollof rice sat waiting, orange-red, rich with meat and fragrant with spice. Grace tied the lid tightly and balanced it on her head with practiced ease. As she stepped outside, the aroma followed her like a spell. The marketplace was already alive when she arrived. A long queue had formed. Mothers, farmers, school children, even elders leaning on canes. "She's late today, ain't?" Mama Ngozi complained. "My children won't go to school without that jollof." "My husband said I must not return empty-handed," another woman added. "He said it gives him strength." And truly, Grace's rice was like no other. It was the talk of 3 villages. The aroma danced down the hills, across streams, and into people's dreams. They called it heaven in a pot. But heaven had its secrets. Each night, when the world quieted and lanterns were snuffed out, Grace returned to her kitchen. In the shadows, she crouched beside a clay pot. Removing the lid, she did the unthinkable. She urinated inside. Then she added dried herbs from a dusty leather pouch, whispering chants she'd memorized from her father's old scrolls. The liquid steamed with power. She poured it into the sauce, bubbling on the fire, stirred slowly, and smiled. Let them eat. Let them love me. Let them obey. The next day, children who once feared goats were now chasing lizards. A 10-year-old boy had grown facial hair. 9-year-old girls giggled like grown women. Parents grew worried, but oddly, also addicted. "If you misbehave, I'll report you to Auntie Grace," one mother barked. And just like that, the child went quiet. Grace had become untouchable. But in one household, someone was watching. Someone who still boiled her rice with smoke, not sin. Her name was Amaka, and she had questions. Amaka stirred her pot of yam porridge as her 3 children sulked beside her. Their plates sat untouched. "But Mama, everyone eats Auntie Grace's jollof," little Ife whined, pushing a piece of yam around with his spoon. "It smells nicer than yours." Amaka stiffened. "Eat what I cooked," she said firmly. "Not everything that smells sweet is good for your soul." The children exchanged a glance. They didn't understand their mother's stubbornness, only that she denied them the magic everyone else tasted daily. Amaka wasn't just any widow. Her husband, Godwin, had been the village herbalist before his death. She had learned from him in silence, listening, watching, storing knowledge like embers in her heart. And something about Grace's jollof made those embers flare with suspicion. That night, Amaka stayed awake long after her children had gone to bed. Dressed in a black wrapper, she crept out of the house and waited in the bush near Grace's compound. The moon was high when Grace emerged. She was alone, clutching a black plastic bucket. She walked briskly down the footpath leading toward the forest. Amaka followed, silent as the wind. Deep in the woods, Grace paused behind a termite mound. She set the bucket down, squatted, and urinated into it. Amaka's hand flew to her mouth in shock. But it wasn't over. Grace produced a small pouch and added a powder to the urine. She whispered something in a tongue Amaka didn't recognize, then stirred the mix with a stick dipped in palm oil. As Grace turned to leave, Amaka ducked behind a tree, heart pounding like a war drum. Back at Grace's hut, the ritual continued. From a narrow gap in the wall, Amaka watched as Grace poured the foul mixture into a boiling pot of jollof rice. The steam rose thick and sweet-smelling, a lie dressed in perfume. Grace hummed an eerie lullaby, the kind Amaka had only heard during ancestral rites. Disgust twisted Amaka's gut. She ran home in silence and locked her door, trembling as she clutched her late husband's herbal scrolls to her chest. "She's killing them," she whispered into the darkness, "and they don't even know." But what could she do? No one would believe her, not while they still licked their plates clean. She needed help. At dawn, she wrapped her scarf and made her way to the edge of the village, to the one man wise enough to understand the horror she had seen with her own eyes. Elder Udo. Elder Udo sat under the shade of a mango tree, carving a wooden flute when Amaka arrived, eyes wide and voice shaking. "My child, what brings you here so early?" he asked, setting the flute aside. Amaka didn't sit. She clasped her hands tightly. "Uncle Udo, it's Grace. I know why the village is growing weak. I know what's in the jollof rice." Udo's brow furrowed. "Speak plainly." She mixes her urine with herbs and palm oil and adds it to the rice. "I saw it with my own eyes." Udo blinked, stunned into silence. Then he rose slowly. "The chief is planning to make her his third wife." Amaka gasped. "If that happens, we are all doomed." That night, under the cover of darkness, Udo gathered 4 trusted elders. They crept to Grace's hut and witnessed her preparing another cursed pot of jollof. Their faces twisted in horror, their hands clutched their chests. At first light, they stormed the market. "Stop eating," Udo shouted. "Do you know what you are feeding your children?" The crowd fell silent. Grace froze, her ladle midair. Then, as if struck by lightning, she bolted, but the elders were faster. She was dragged to the village square, bound with rope. "Let me go," Grace screamed. "You fools! You poisoned me first." The villagers stood in stunned silence as Amaka stepped forward. She used her urine. She chanted over it. "That's what's been weakening us." One by one, people dropped their plates. Some wept, some cursed, all were shaken. Grace spat on the ground, face contorted with rage. "You think I did this for fun? Your fathers, your beloved elders, burned my father alive. They lied. They said he slept with the queen. He was innocent. He was next in line to rule, but they envied him." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "I watched him die," Grace continued, tears now mixing with rage. "I was a child, and no one helped him. My own mother laughed." She collapsed to the ground, trembling. Her face began to age before the eyes, lines crawling across her skin like vines. The magic was leaving her. "I only wanted justice," she whispered. Amaka stepped closer, crouching beside her. "You deserve justice, but this this wasn't the way. The king appeared, regal but heavy-hearted. "Grace," he said gently, "if there's any mercy left in you, end this." For a long moment, silence reigned. Then Grace nodded. 5 months later, Grace died peacefully in the palace garden, older, quiet, forgiven. And though her story ended in tragedy, her final act became a tale the village never forgot, a warning and a lesson.